For centuries, the Galactic Council had agreed on only one thing without debate: humans were dangerous. Not hostile. Not evil. Dangerous in a way that made logic uneasy. Other species evolved with restraint, predictability, and harmony. Humans evolved through catastrophe, conflict, and relentless adaptation. Their history was not one of peace but of survival against impossible odds. They fought their own planet, their own biology, and each other, and still advanced faster than any recorded civilization. To the wider galaxy, this made them unstable, volatile, and catastrophically unpredictable. When humanity first reached the stars, their technology was crude compared to the ancient powers of the Council. But their tactics were disturbing. Human fleets did not follow expected patterns. Their strategies relied on instinct as much as calculation. They deployed weapons that bordered on reckless. They sacrificed assets without hesitation if it gained even a fractional advantage. And worst of all, they adapted in real time. Enemy countermeasures became obsolete within hours. Simulations failed to predict their next move. Where other species refined perfection, humans weaponized chaos. In early encounters, human commanders willingly pushed their ships beyond safety limits, burned out engines to achieve impossible acceleration, and rerouted life support power into weapons systems without regard for survival margins. When questioned, their response was simple: survival favored those who accepted risk. This mindset unsettled the galaxy. Civilizations built on stability saw humans as a destabilizing force. Their wars were short, brutal, and absolute. They ended conflicts not by exhausting their enemies, but by overwhelming them psychologically, strategically, and technologically in terrifying bursts of controlled destruction. Within decades, the Council unanimously restricted humanity from deep galactic integration. Human trade was limited. Their diplomatic presence was minimized. Joint military exercises were forbidden. And slowly, their name became a warning. Dangerous. Unpredictable. A species best kept distant. For nearly 4 centuries, that doctrine held firm. Then the anomaly appeared. It began as a microscopic distortion in deep space, detected only by long-range gravitational sensors. At first, scientists dismissed it as background fluctuation. Within weeks it grew. Space itself began to ripple. Energy readings surged beyond theoretical maximums. Entire regions of vacuum behaved as liquid, then vapor, then nothing at all. The anomaly did not explode or expand violently. It consumed. Slowly at first. Then faster. The first star system vanished in less than 6 minutes. No explosion. No debris. Just absence. A region of nothing where gravity, light, and time itself ceased to exist. Panic spread across the galactic network. Emergency research coalitions formed instantly. The greatest minds of 1,000 civilizations converged on the problem. Mathematical models collapsed under contradictory data. Quantum observers reported feedback loops that violated causality. Reality was unraveling, and nothing in recorded physics could explain how to stop it. Defense fleets were deployed. Energy barriers stronger than planetary shields were erected along its projected path. They disintegrated in seconds. Graviton cannons, singularity torpedoes, stellar plasma barrages, every known weapon struck the anomaly and vanished. It did not absorb energy. It erased it. Attacks simply ceased to exist the moment they touched its surface. Entire civilizations attempted evacuation. Billions fled. It didn't matter. The anomaly traveled through hyperspace corridors, cutting off escape routes. Ships disappeared mid-jump. Planets vanished before alarms could finish sounding. Star systems collapsed into silence. The Council activated its most powerful artificial intelligences, ancient constructs built to predict cosmic-scale events. They simulated trillions of variables, recalculated probability trees, and projected futures thousands of years ahead. The results were unanimous. Total galactic extinction within 37 standard cycles. Not war. Not conquest. Not collapse. Erasure. Civilizations that had survived supernovas, black hole migrations, dimensional breaches, and galaxy-spanning wars faced something fundamentally unstoppable. Entire cultural histories prepared extinction archives. Species councils debated which planets would receive evacuation priority, knowing it would change nothing. Some chose ritualistic endings. Others chose denial. And still, one name remained unspoken. Humans. They existed at the galaxy's fringe, technologically inferior in raw power, politically isolated, strategically distrusted. Their worlds lay far from major trade corridors. Their fleets were few. Their influence limited. Yet even as the galaxy collapsed, council members hesitated. Because humans did not think like them. They feared human responses more than annihilation. Feared tactics no simulation could predict. Feared weapons humans might unleash that could destabilize spacetime itself. Feared solutions that could save the galaxy at costs no one was prepared to pay. Emergency assemblies debated endlessly. Some argued extinction was preferable to unleashing humanity. Others insisted there was no alternative. Civilizations fell faster than consensus could form. Entire species vanished while delegates argued philosophy. Finally, a system housing one of the Council's founding races disappeared. That ended debate. The transmission channel to human space, sealed for centuries, was reactivated. Diplomatic protocols were rewritten. Apology frameworks drafted and discarded. Pride collapsed under terror. The message was simple. We need help. The signal crossed light years of silent void, carrying the weight of trillions of lives. It arrived at Earth's orbital relay, piercing centuries of isolation. Human systems flagged it as top priority extinction level contact. Within minutes, it reached planetary command. For several seconds, no one spoke. Human leaders stared at projections of collapsing galaxies, consumed systems, and annihilated fleets. The anomaly dwarfed anything humanity had ever encountered. Their war simulations predicted catastrophic failure. Survival probability calculations hovered near zero. Silence stretched across command chambers, research facilities, and fleet headquarters. Then a single human strategist broke it. "If reality is breaking," he said quietly, "then we stop playing by its rules." Across Earth and its colonies, mobilization began. Not for conquest. Not for defense. For sacrifice. The species the galaxy feared prepared to answer a call no one else could. The moment the transmission ended, Earth changed. Across human space, industrial zones shifted to full wartime output. Civilian traffic lanes cleared. Research facilities abandoned peacetime restrictions. Governments dissolved political deadlock and merged authority into a single emergency command. Humanity had learned long ago that survival demanded speed, not consensus. Yet hesitation lingered. Not fear of the anomaly. Fear of what answering might cost. The galaxy had cast humanity aside. Restricted their growth. Treated them as a destabilizing hazard. For centuries, humans had endured isolation, building quietly, advancing relentlessly, waiting for a day that might never come. Now, as extinction loomed, those same powers were begging. Some leaders argued for refusal. Let the galaxy face the consequences of its own choices. Others pushed for conditional aid, demands, reparations, political restructuring. But the debate ended quickly. Human history was not written by comfort. It was written by necessity. Survival had never been optional. And when extinction loomed, humans did not bargain. They acted. Strategists, engineers, physicists, biologists, and military commanders flooded into unified operations centers. Simulations ran nonstop. The anomaly did not obey physics. It rewrote it. Every traditional method failed. Conventional warfare was meaningless. Superior firepower was irrelevant. So humans abandoned conventional thought. Instead of overpowering the anomaly, they sought to confuse it. Human scientists modeled the phenomenon not as an enemy, but as a system, an unstable one, governed by probabilistic thresholds. They identified patterns inside the chaos, flickers of internal logic. The anomaly reacted to pressure. It adapted. which meant it could be manipulated. That single realization changed everything. Human fleets would not attack. They would provoke. Ship designs were rewritten overnight. Engineers stripped unnecessary systems, replacing stability with flexibility. Hulls were reinforced for stress far beyond safety margins. Power cores were rebuilt to operate beyond theoretical tolerances. Navigation systems were reprogrammed to allow instinct-based manual override, giving pilots direct control over hyperspace trajectories that no AI would ever calculate. Where other species sought predictability, humans embraced uncertainty. Chaos theory engines were installed, capable of generating fluctuating energy signatures designed to destabilize the anomaly's internal structure. Adaptive shields capable of reconfiguring their molecular alignment every microsecond replaced static defense grids. Entire ship classes were converted into disposable platforms, built for single-use tactical maneuvers with no expectation of survival. Human commanders did not design a battle plan. They built an evolving response. The fleet itself would think. Neuralinked AI systems were fused with human intuition, allowing strategies to mutate in real time. Every maneuver, every failure, every sacrifice would feed instant data back into fleet consciousness, reshaping tactics faster than the anomaly could adapt. It was warfare as living process. Human psychology shaped the design. They understood loss. They accepted it. And they weaponized that acceptance. If one ship failed, its destruction would refine the next attack. If an entire squadron vanished, their deaths would become data. Nothing would be wasted. Every life lost would sharpen the blade. The galaxy had feared this mindset for centuries. Now it would save them. Across human colonies, evacuation orders were issued. Civilians flooded orbital shelters as military convoys launched nonstop. Families gathered for final moments, knowing no farewell would be enough. Parents held children. Partners whispered promises neither believed. Soldiers recorded messages scheduled to transmit only if they never returned. No speeches. No ceremony. Just quiet resolve. Human history was filled with last stands. This would be the greatest. Within days, the fleet assembled. Thousands of ships, from agile strike craft to massive deep space carriers, aligned across orbital space. Their hulls bore no emblems, no banners. Only identification codes and mission parameters. This was not conquest. It was survival. At the center of the formation, a single transmission was prepared for the Galactic Council. It contained no demands. Only coordinates. The fleet would intercept the anomaly at its leading edge. There would be no retreat. The response from the Council was immediate and frantic. They begged humans to wait, to allow joint task forces, to coordinate, to prepare fallback plans. Human command declined. Every moment wasted meant another system erased. And fallback meant nothing against oblivion. As the Armada jumped into hyperspace, long-range sensors finally captured full-scale visuals of the anomaly. Reality itself seemed to fold inward around it. Space twisted like liquid glass. Light bent into spirals. Time dilation zones fractured around its core, forming chaotic halos of shifting causality. Gravity wells collapsed and reformed endlessly. No stable boundary existed. It was not a weapon. It was a wound. Human fleet commanders studied it in silence. Then began calculating. Navigation routes were plotted that ignored conventional safety laws. Pilots were briefed to expect sensory distortion, temporal feedback, and neurological stress. Medical contingents prepared for mass casualties. Recovery operations were deprioritized. Every available resource was allocated to forward momentum. Human doctrine had never centered on survival of the individual. It centered on survival of the species. As they closed the distance, the first galactic observation arrays came online. Billions across surviving systems watched, broadcasting humanity's approach in stunned disbelief. Some expected arrogance. Others expected fear. What they saw instead was terrifying calm. Human ships adjusted formation continuously, weaving through gravitational turbulence with instinctive precision. They did not cluster for defense. They spread, fragmented, reassembled, and fragmented again, creating constantly shifting tactical geometries. No rigid structure. Only controlled disorder. As the fleet entered engagement range, energy fields flared. Chaos engines ignited. Probability fields destabilized. Hyperspace currents twisted. And humanity made its first move. Not an attack. A question. They fired a probe directly into the anomaly's core. It vanished instantly. And in that disappearance, human systems learned. Patterns emerged. Reaction thresholds. Energy oscillations. Structural weaknesses buried beneath layers of cosmic instability. The anomaly had limits. Not boundaries. But tolerances. Human fleets adjusted. They would not break it. They would overload it. The second wave launched. And the galaxy held its breath. The second wave did not strike as a single force. It fragmented into hundreds of autonomous attack clusters, each operating under evolving parameters. Human ships moved without symmetry, without repetition, and without hesitation. Every vector changed constantly. Every maneuver broke conventional navigation laws. To outside observers, the fleet appeared disorganized, almost reckless. To the anomaly, it became impossible to predict. Energy fire erupted across distorted space. Chaos engines unleashed cascading probability surges, forcing the anomaly to react to millions of conflicting stimuli simultaneously. Reality around the impact zone shuddered, twisting into violent geometries. Entire squadrons disappeared as spacetime folded inward. Their loss fed the fleet's adaptive networks, rewriting engagement models in real time. Human pilots pushed their vessels beyond survivable limits. Engines burned out. Hull plating vaporized. Power cores overloaded. Ships tore themselves apart executing maneuvers no biological nervous system should survive. Yet every sacrifice tightened the tactical net. The anomaly retaliated. Entire formations were erased. Communication links collapsed. Time dilation fractures trapped vessels in isolated temporal pockets, aging crews decades and seconds. Medical units worked without pause, reviving those they could, cataloging the rest for data extraction. Nothing was wasted. Human strategy evolved faster than destruction. Instead of direct assault, they shifted toward destabilization. Microsingularity charges were detonated in cascading sequences, creating localized gravity inversions that tore at the anomaly's internal cohesion. Space-time inversion traps collapsed its outer layers inward, forcing energy compression beyond stable thresholds. Each reaction exposed deeper structural weaknesses. But the anomaly adapted. Energy pulses intensified. Reality fractures widened. Whole regions of space unraveled. Human losses mounted into the thousands, then tens of thousands. Still, the fleets pressed forward. Human command authorized extreme protocols. Disposable carriers rammed directly into high-density zones, triggering controlled implosions. Crews manually overrode safety interlocks, detonating fusion cores at point-blank range. Engineers sacrificed entire research vessels by forcing experimental drives into uncontrolled resonance, producing dimensional shockwaves that destabilized subspace continuity. Every maneuver bought seconds. Seconds that allowed recalibration. Seconds that revealed patterns. Seconds that pushed the anomaly closer to critical failure. Neural-linked AIs integrated battlefield chaos, updating fleet consciousness continuously. Human intuition guided algorithmic evolution, forming hybrid tactical logic no other species possessed. Emotion sharpened calculation. Fear sharpened resolve. Loss sharpened precision. The anomaly began to falter. Its expansion slowed. Energy absorption rates declined. Internal oscillations became erratic. For the first time, predictive models showed possibility instead of certainty. Human commanders seized it. They initiated the final sequence. Remaining capital ships formed a fractured lattice around the anomaly, maintaining unstable gravitational anchors. Smaller craft swarmed through collapsing space-time corridors, planting singularity seeds at calculated rupture points. Each insertion cost lives. None were delayed. At the core of the formation, 3 human dreadnoughts charged their chaos engines beyond irreversible thresholds. Their crews knew there would be no retreat. Power output surged past theoretical maximums. Space-time around their hulls ignited. The anomaly responded violently. Reality imploded. Energy storms tore across the battlefield. Entire starship wings disintegrated. Shockwaves shattered dimensional boundaries. Human vessels vanished in bursts of gravitational collapse. But the lattice held long enough. The chaos engines fired. Probability fields inverted. Temporal vectors destabilized. The anomaly's internal structure was forced into resonance with its own expansion patterns. For a fraction of a second, its infinite complexity became rigid. And rigid systems break. The singularity seeds activated simultaneously. The anomaly collapsed inward. Space folded. Time fractured. Light vanished. A cosmic implosion echoed across hyperspace corridors, rippling through half the galaxy. Observation arrays overloaded. Sensors went blind. Entire civilizations lost communication simultaneously. Then silence. For several heartbeats, nothing existed but void. When detection systems stabilized, the anomaly was gone. Where it had consumed star systems, empty space remained. No radiation. No residual distortion. Just absence, cooling into stability. Of the human fleet, less than 30% remained operational. Thousands of ships were missing. Millions of lives extinguished. Human commanders transmitted a single status burst. Objective achieved. Then the fleet began emergency stabilization procedures, retrieving survivors where possible, transmitting medical telemetry, and cataloging the fallen. There was no celebration. No triumph. Only quiet exhaustion and heavy silence. Across the galaxy, transmissions flooded every remaining system. The impossible had happened. The unstoppable had been stopped. The species once labeled dangerous had accomplished what the combined power of the galaxy could not. And for the first time in recorded history, the Galactic Council stood in collective awe of humanity. But humans did not wait for praise. They turned their damaged ships toward home, carrying with them the weight of a victory that had cost more than any war. Behind them, the void slowly healed. Ahead of them, a galaxy reevaluated everything it believed. The silence that followed spread faster than celebration ever could. Across surviving systems, worlds that had prepared extinction rituals halted in disbelief. Evacuation fleets stopped mid-burn. Final transmissions meant for historical archives were never sent. Civilizations that had accepted annihilation stared at empty space where oblivion had once advanced. Trillions lived. And they lived because humans had chosen to answer. Rescue convoys surged toward the battlefield. What they found reshaped galactic history. Broken human ships drifted through cooling void. Escape pods scattered across shattered space-time corridors. Medical teams worked without pause, pulling survivors from collapsing hulls, stabilizing bodies pushed beyond biological limits. Every recovered human carried scars, radiation burns, neurological damage, gravitational trauma, cellular degradation from temporal exposure. And still, none expressed regret. When asked why they had come, their answers were always the same. Because someone needed us. As casualty reports compiled, the scale of sacrifice became clear. Entire human fleets had vanished. Veteran commanders, brilliant scientists, and irreplaceable engineers were gone. Colonies would mourn for generations. Families would never receive bodies. Only data fragments, last messages, and empty names. Yet no human authority demanded compensation. No treaties were rewritten. No power was claimed. The galaxy struggled to comprehend this. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. For the first time in its existence, the chamber remained silent. There were no debates. No political maneuvering. Only overwhelming recognition of failure and debt. Humanity had been right. Fear had blinded them. Human history, once used as proof of danger, was suddenly understood as evidence of survival against extinction. Their wars, their chaos, their relentless adaptation were not flaws. They were evolutionary answers to an unforgiving universe. The Council issued a unanimous declaration. Humanity was no longer classified as dangerous. Their new designation carried unprecedented weight. Essential species. Across the galaxy, educational systems were rewritten. Cultural doctrine shifted. Human sacrifice became required historical study. Children learned not to fear human unpredictability, but to respect it. Military academies dismantled rigid tactical models, replacing them with adaptive strategy frameworks based on human doctrine. Statues rose on worlds humans had never seen. Memorial arrays lit entire orbital rings. Names of fallen human ships were etched into planetary crusts. Entire star systems dimmed their light output for moments of collective silence. And still, humanity did not celebrate. Their fleet returned slowly, battered and diminished. Earth's orbital space filled with silent ships bearing scars of impossible combat. Families gathered, searching docking corridors for faces that would never appear. Cities dimmed. Voices lowered. Entire planets entered mourning. No victory parades were held. Only remembrance. At the heart of human space, a single transmission was prepared. It was broadcast openly, without encryption, across every surviving galactic network. It contained no accusation. No pride. Only truth. We were called dangerous. The message began. And you were right. But not for the reasons you believed. We are dangerous because we refuse to accept extinction. We adapt when logic fails. We sacrifice when hope disappears. We endure when survival demands it. Not because we seek destruction, but because we choose life. The broadcast ended there. No demands followed. No conditions. Just silence. In that silence, the galaxy finally understood. Humanity was not feared because it destroyed. It was feared because it survived. Where others sought stability, humans embraced chaos. Where others calculated safety, humans calculated possibility. Where others surrendered to inevitability, humans rewrote it. They were dangerous not to civilizations, but to extinction itself. And somewhere in the vast quiet between stars, the memory of human sacrifice settled into legend, a reminder etched across light years of space. When the universe finally met its limit, it would not be logic that defied it. It would be humanity. Because when everything else failed, they had answered. And the galaxy would never forget.